Hello again, ladies and gentlemen, Saka here, and welcome to Orbiter 2016. And I wanted to get back in this game. I played it back in 2011, way back before Kerbal Space Program. And when I saw Kerbal Space Program, I'm like, oh, that's Orbiter with little green men. But we are here in Orbiter, and we want to go to space today, or at least low Earth orbit. Everyone and their mother wants to go to the International Space Station, which is selected in our target MFD, but I think we're going to try something different and actually go to the Mir Space Station. So let's go ahead and get set up for that on our target. We want to go to Spacecraft and Mir. Let's get the display, change the mod to orbit plane, and now we can see, if we zoom in, the orbit of Mir. And it's going from west to east, so we'll be taking off in an easterly direction, but of course we have to wait for its orbit to intersect with ours. I've set the time for the actual day, so it is June 11th that I'm recording this, and we're going to see exactly, if we wanted to take off now, how long we would have to wait and how long it would take us to get to the Mir Space Station. So let's time accelerate until we get to about our takeoff time. All right, we're getting ever so close. We want its peak of its orbit to be as close to us as possible, so that should be in a bit. Let's go ahead and align our planes to the Mir spacecraft, and we can see the inclination there in real time. Also, we want to configure our orbit to project to the ship and get real time to the ground distance. All right, so now that all of that is set up, let's go back to the map and get our planes as close as possible. So we have a pretty narrow window as it seems. So just when this part gets right under us, we will take off, and there we go. So we are ready to go 1.7 degrees as of now. All right, let's make sure that we are set. Everything is awesome. And let's take off. So we will be launching to the 90. Once we get airborne, we'll go ahead and pull up our orbit MFD. Airspeed is alive, and then once we get airborne, we will pitch to the 90. Taking off from Cape Canaveral, Florida, so not as a high graphics fidelity as Microsoft Flight Simulator, but the entire world is here. Just rotate to that 090 and then cross the T. And by that I mean making sure that our relative inclination is as close as possible. All right, there is the 90 coming around. You can see the plane align come around. So let's get up a little bit, and what I'll do is I'll point about 20 degrees up. The T is crossed down here, as you can see. That is probably about as good as we're going to get. And I'll just put a little bit of trim in to keep our nose up. And just rotate. Nope. So to the left is too aggressive. There we go. To the right just a bit. So it looks like 090 is as on point as we can make it. So we will pick up speed, full throttle all the way through, and I'm just going to keep going in this direction, making sure that this T is crossed, and we'll be shooting for about 250K, I think is a good number. As we get through the thicker part of this atmosphere, the nose will start to dip, and then we'll put in some more elevator trim, and then finally turn on our rotation thrusters to keep us pointing upward. All right, we'll turn to the right just a little bit. The T is coming uncrossed, and there we go. So probably 1.7 degrees is going to be our plane change needed to get on plane with the Mir. Let's look external. There we are, leaving Cape Canaveral behind. All right, so I will fast forward in editing, but I'll ride this through in real time, and if anything goes wrong, I'll definitely be able to come back to you. So enjoy the ride to orbit. All right, so we're at 35,000 meters, so let's go ahead and turn on our rotation mode and just keep that nose pitch to about 20 degrees. And we'll continue our climb on up, where apoapse is 42K, is as high as our orbit will get as of now, and we'll continue to push that up to 250.
Mach 4. Mach 5. Mach 6. Mach 7. Mach 8. Mach 9.
We're just passing Mach 9 at 67K, and we're going to get out of the thick stuff pretty quick. So what I'll do is, instead of rotating the spacecraft or rolling the spacecraft left and right, I'm just going to use some yaw to try to get the to keep the T cross down there. And you can see if we go too far to the left, that T is growing. So we'll use some right yaw. And as that comes closer, of course, we'll cancel out that yaw, because if we kept going, we would just keep spinning in the direction we were heading. So we just want to spin it until that rate goes down to 0. And then go straight on until morning. It's almost like we're going off to Neverland.
12.
So apoapse is at 82K. Still climbing, and then once we get out of the atmosphere completely, that apoapse is going to climb really quick. So once it starts climbing, we will be ready to cut throttle and cruise on up to our apoapse. So yeah, let's just finish off this orbital burn.
Mach 14. Mach 15. Mach 16.
Yeah, we are really hauling the mail now. I'm not even touching the stick. I mean, it is just a ginger touch here and there. Apoapse is at 116,000, so we'll be nearing the top of our climb fairly quickly. All right, it's really climbing up now. Our T is crossed. We're at 211, and that should reach 250 quick, fast, and in a hurry. I'm not even on the stick right now, just letting the craft go naturally forward. And at 10K away. Boom, 250. All right, let's go ahead and get ready for our circularization burn. So we want to go to Orbital HUD, and we'll point prograde, and let's pull up a tool that's going to help us here. We'll grab the burn time MFD. We'll set the MD to apoapse and hit circularize. So in 174 seconds, the main engines are going to kick on for 88 total seconds to get us nice and circularized. I'm not worried about the plane just yet. We'll watch our orbit increase, so I will see you at the burn. And 5 seconds away. 3, 2, 1, and burning. And this is going to be a 1 minute 20 second burn, and our orbit will hopefully get nice and circular around the Earth at about 250,000 meters. So let's finish off this burn and see where we're at. All right, burn is complete. Eccentricity is 0.002. We're at 237 by 263, so kind of a wonky orbit. But either way, we should be lower than the mirror, and that's one thing that we will take a look at. Let me kill rotation so our thrusters aren't always trying to keep us pointed down. And let's set our target to the mirror. And we can see that the mirror's periapse, the lowest point in its orbit, is 293K. and the highest point of its orbit is 304K. We can see that the mirror is actually behind us, which is good because that means that we can raise our orbit up to meet it, and then raise our orbit up on the other side even higher, and it will gently come to us, but right now we're going to be leaving it. We'll be faster because the time it takes us to get around the Earth is 5,362 seconds, and the time it takes it is 5,420... Hold on. 5,421. So for every time we go around the Earth, we're going to be 100 seconds further along, which with us being in front of it here means, yeah, we'll catch it eventually, but it is going, how long does that take? It's 53 or 5,300 divided by 100, 53 orbits for us to come, and we're not going to do that. Next step up, though, however, is we need to align our planes to the mirror directly and get rid of this 1.73 degrees. And we're coming up to our descending node, which means if we're going to be crossing at the descending, we want to be ascending. So that is normal plus or plus 90 on your HUD. Let's just give the RCS thrusters a little puff and let momentum carry us up to the 90 and take a look at that view outside. Just for shiggles, where are we in relative to the Earth here? All right, so we're over the Atlantic Ocean, about to cross the Gold Coast and over the middle of Africa. Awesome. So let's go ahead and kill our rotation at the plus 90, and then we'll go ahead and float around another 1,000 seconds to get to our descending node. All right, about 1 minute away from the node itself. Let's go ahead and go normal plus. The autopilot will accommodate, and this will be a 13.89 second burn at the descending node. So splitting that in half, it is almost 7 and 7. So we will start our burn when this is time to node 7 and burn for 14 seconds or so, and that should get rid of our relative inclination. Zero it out, we will cross the T, and then our orbit lines, the green and the yellow, will be right on. And we can see where that cross happens right over here on the west coast of Africa. All right, so let's get ready for our burn here. And burn it. So full power from the main engines for 14 seconds. You can see that relative inclination going down. And once we zero that out, our orbits should be overlaid. All right, we zeroed it out. I mean, just 0.01 thrust. This is close enough for government work, and indeed, if we look, the green and yellow orbit lines of Mir and us are lined up nice and neat. So the next step is, where do we want to encounter the Mir? Now, ideally, what we want to do is encounter it in the daytime, and we just crossed the night terminator. So we look down there, there's some lights down on Earth. We are nighttime in Africa. So what we'll do is we'll cruise on to the terminator here until we get some daylight, and then we will see what Mir's orbit is, how high off the ground it is, which we can do by looking at our orbits, and we will look at Mir's altitude at that time, and then we will go to the other side and make our orbit at that point. So let's get to it. And good morning, everyone. We are here over the Pacific Ocean, just passing just to the south of Hawaii, and then we'll go over the Baja Peninsula. But right now we look at Mir's altitude, and is 293.9 at this point in the orbit. We could probably go to 294. Now what we want to do is we want to make sure that the point here, let me get rid of the no target, that this point right here where Mir actually is where our altitude will be, 294. So it's handy, it's right here on the line of nodes. So all we have to do is wait until we are on the line of nodes and burn prograde to raise our apoaps up to 294. and then we can adjust our orbit from there. So let me cruise on around to the back side of the planet. Should be around, let's say, Africa again, I would say. So yeah, let's just truck on around until we get to this point. All right, we're almost there, and not quite over the coast of Africa. Let's go ahead and turn prograde, let the autopilot do the work, and remember we want our orbit to be at 294 right across from us. So the point of the orbit over here, we want to be at 294, which, because we're lower than, that will be our new apoapse, the new highest point, hello moon, of our orbit. All right, so let's go until our apoapse is 294. Whoops, a little bit of extra zeal.
Translation.
Let's go translation and use the reverse thrusters and bring that down to 294. All right, set, 294. So our apoapse, if I click the mod here, you can see that our apoapse is right, should be about right there or so, right in line with the orbit of Mir. But we are still faster, as more often than not, we are still lower than the orbit of Mir, which means we need to raise our orbit up higher than Mir's in order for Mir to catch up, which we will do at this point that we set. This will be our new burn place, our apoapse, which you can see is 2,386 seconds away. Then we'll just burn prograde, raise our orbit up, and this is where our sync orbit comes into play. Now that our orbit crosses Mir and we are in plane, when we go to Mir, we can see, let's set this, no, not the length. We want to set the mod, and at our ship's apoapsis, we can see 378, and it's just climbing up, of course, because we're running away from Mir. Once we burn our orbit higher, we'll see this number come down, and one of these numbers will sync up. So let's kill our rotation, get on over to our apoapse time, and then continue burning prograde to raise our apoapse up until we see our DT men get down to 0. All right, about a minute away, and we are pretty much facing reverse because we burned prograde over here, and without rotating the spacecraft, we're, still pointed in this direction as it rotates around, meaning we're going to be facing backwards. But one thing that we're going to have to change is this will no longer be our apoapsis because the highest point of our orbit will be over here as we increase our distance. So we will change our sync orbit once our apoapse gets a little bit higher to periapse. So let's go ahead and actually do that to the ship periapsis. Now it thinks it's over here, but it won't be for long. Here we go. And we're going to watch the DT men tick down. 4, 3, 2, 1. There we go. Just a little bit of burning here and there. All right, too much. Let's go reverse thrusters. On our RCS, bring that right down to 0. 003, which means, what does this mean? It means in, 3% of a minute, whatever that is, both Mir and us will cross that point right there, which is what we need to do to park it. However, that's going to be in 22,000 seconds time. So we'll be cruising for a little bit. Let's turn off our kill rotation. Next thing I want to do is get our retro doors open because instead of flipping around backwards to slow down, we want to be facing the Mir and use retro thrusters. If we take a look outside, we can see those doors are open, and those are the engines that's going to be slowing us down, those firing backwards. All right, so next thing we will do is we don't need to have a target set or anything of that nature, but what we do need to do is set our frequencies. So we want to be able to communicate with the Mir. So let's open up our ComNav page, open up our info box, and select the vessel and the Mir. and we're going to get a few key pieces of information. First off, the transponder. This is what is going to ping at 500 kilometers and lower to basically tell us where in the world the mirror even is. So that's 132.10 down to 132.10. And the next nav frequency we want is a docking port. So all 3 docking ports are free. Let's roll with the first one. So 135 flat. Sweet. So now our nav frequencies are input, and what we will do is turn on our docking mode. So the first is approach, nav 1, that is this transponder frequency here. Once we get within 500 kilometers, we will start seeing how fast we are relative to it, how close we are closing up on it, and that will tell us how much we need to burn our engines for. Then once we get really close, we can swap nav to nav 2, and that will give us our track over to port 1. So I will see you in 21,000 seconds or so whenever we rotate around and Mir will slowly catch up to us. All right, we are 1 orbit away. This is going to be our intersect point here. This is where we are. This is where Mir is. And you can see that the DT min actually dropped to 0.02, which means 2% of a minute. However many seconds that is the only separation between us and Mir at this point. So as we rotate around, our approach and dock will come online, but we have to make sure that our transponder is set to nav 1, and you can see that even here, we're not ready to dock yet, but we are 740K away with a closing velocity of only 40 meters per second, so that's not going to take our retro engines much long at all to deal with. And the reason that that is so low is that the orbits really aren't that different. If we had a massive orbit and we were way out of the Earth and coming back really quickly to make the connection, that velocity may be in the thousands of meters per second. But because we're essentially in the same orbit, we're essentially moving at the same speed. And you can see that reflected in our velocity. So let's go on around one more orbit, and about here, we'll start pointing to the to Mir. And matter of fact, what we can do is click HUD, and that will be our docking camera, and we can see our relative velocity and where Mir is. Next thing, of course, we want to do, open up that nose cone before we forget it, which the docking computer is so nice to tell us about. All right, dock is open. I will see you in 1 orbit's time. All right, so Mir is 60K away, and our relative velocity is coming down very quickly. But just for shiggles, what we can do is bring up our burn timer, switch the engines to the retro engines, and say that if we wanted to kill off 90 meters per second, we only need to start that burn when we're 1.1K away from Mir. And that is coming down by the time we get there. So that is all well and good. It's only going to be a 24-second burn. And as we get closer, this velocity is continuing to go down. That number will shrink as well. So let's just ride up to Mir a little bit closer.
Location.
So I pointed at our prograde vector as far as relative. So what the docking computer does is, instead of tell us what direction we're traveling in relation to our orbit, it's telling us where we're traveling in relation to Mir, which we're going to be behind it a little bit, as you can see, still in the general direction. And this is our closing velocity here, 51K away. Let's actually adjust our delta V now to 80, let's say. And you can see that now we only need to brake at 889 meters away from the station for 22 seconds. So as this speed ticks off, the amount of burn we need will also decrease. So let's get even closer. So what I do is I take stages whenever I see that our closing velocity changes by 10 or so. I'll go back into the delta V and put in that new number. So 50 meters per second is only a 13-second burn, and we only need to brake at 347 meters away. And you can see we're still not quite to our rendezvous. We have about an eighth of an orbit left, so we're going to get pretty close to Mir. All right, we are 3 minutes away from the rendezvous, 180 seconds. So this is about the speed that we are actually going to need to kill. Let's turn on our docking computer, and you can see indeed the relative velocity is 43 meters per second. Let's go up to 45 because we would rather kill off all of our speed and then a little bit more rather than not kill off enough and have a bad day. So that's going to be a 12-second burn. And we need to start braking at 281 meters. So actually, once we get within 500 meters of Mir, we can do that. Let's just confirm our approach time here with our sync orbit. So we're 136 seconds away from our intersection. So, you know, once we see this down to 12 seconds, essentially that's when we need to burn.
5,000. 4,000, 3,000, 2,000, 1,000.
All right, 1,000 meters away from Mir. We're coming right over to the right side of it. It's going to go under our left wing here.
600.
And there it is. There's the shadow.
500.
And let's just kill.
400. 300.
Keep this pointed at the retro velocity. And there we go, engine cut off, and we're pretty much parked next to Mir. We have to clean it up just a little bit. So I will go to nav 2 for the docking computer and rotate around to the Mir space station. And you can see our relative velocity is 0.6, or our closing velocity. Our relative velocity is about 1 meter a second, and we're going a little bit away from it. But there is Mir shining bright. And we're catching up to it on the daylight side, which is about what we wanted to do. All right, so let's head to our prograde velocity. I'm moving down in this direction. I know with the background, it's hard to see exactly where we're rotating, but essentially I want to kill off our velocity here, and we'll use RCS engines to do that. So we'll get right on the prograde vector here.
Translation.
And then just use reverse translation there to bring that down. There we go. So now we are pretty much stopped next to Mir. And we don't have to worry about slamming into it. So let's move down to Mir and click the HUD button again. What that will do is set that dock in our HUD, and we can sort of see the runway that it wants us to go to. And there she is. So we will be coming on that that right side about there. So yeah, let's kill off our rotation.
Translation.
Use our linear thrusters forward, and then we will pull it up just a bit and head towards that little highway relatively safely. We'll go 1 meter a second, let's say. And then we'll just fine-tune our approach with our translation thrusters, making sure that we're moving in. Once we intersect with the docking lane, we'll kill off our velocity, point to Mir, make sure that we are orientated correctly, and begin the docking procedure. So I will float onto Mir, and we will begin our docking here on the daylight side.
200. 100. Rotation 75. 50. 40. Translation.
All right, let's kill off our velocity. Come to about a complete stop. And when you're stopped, the little RCS thrusters make a big difference, that is for sure.
Rotation.
All right, we'll rotate to the mirror and make sure that we are aligned correctly. We're 47 meters away from it.
30.
All right, so we're not quite there yet. Let's go ahead and get pointed the correct way. So we see that red X coming in. There we go. We'll put that dead center. Kill off our rotation. And then all we have to do is roll to the left a bit. So we'll just put in some roll. Get that arrow right at the top of the screen. Little bit overzealous. All right, so now we are lined up as far as our orientation is concerned. We are pointing the way we need to go. The only thing we need to do is go down a bit, but we don't need to change how the ship looks. We just need a little bit of a direction change. So let's use our thrusters to do such things as these. A little down and to the left, keeping that arrow pointed right at the yellow crosshair until it is lined up completely. And you can see Mir has seen some better days. Oh, overshot a bit. So now we don't need too much thrust. And then once we get all lined up, we will put some throttle in this thing. All right, so now we're lined up left to right and pretty much lined up top to bottom. There we go. So our velocity is 0. We are not moving relative to Mir at all. Let's put in some forward thrust. And then we'll bring that pointer right down towards the dock. And it doesn't take much, that is for sure. Actually, using the stick is a little bit more precise. All right, so while we're here,
Rotation.
we'll adjust our pitch just a bit. That white X was not lined up directly. And now, of course, we need some pushing that yellow line in. We'll give it a little bit more forward momentum, but not so much that we can't kill it. All right, there we go. So now we're pretty much lined up.
Rotation. Translation. 15. 10. 9.
All right, about 10 meters away. And this is where micro movements on the RCS is
8.
required. Just a little puff here and there. Lined up pretty
7.
bang on, I would say. And we're connecting to this thing that, you know, doesn't quite look like a docking port.
6.
And you can see our shadow right there. That is nice, our shadow coming down. But we don't have to
5.
touch a thing, as this thing will slowly dock up. And then we can refuel and
4.
get back to the Cape Canaveral Kennedy Space Center. Almost said Kerbal Space Center.
3.
But 3.
2.
Just a little puff to the right and to the left. Just micro here and there.
1.
And docking is
Contact.
done.
Ship is docked.
And that's what I
Rotation.
like to hear. All right, so there we are, everyone. The Mir Space Station floating right there, seen better days, but we are now docked up to the Mir, and we can do whatever missions that we want. So it is Monday, June 13th. Remember, I started on the runway on Saturday, so we had to wait some time for the orbit to pass over us, and then getting up to orbit. So it's just now Monday, Greenwich Mean Time, and we intercepted it. Where are we on the map, by the by? So right over India is where we docked up. So we'll just cruise on over southern Japan and get ready for coming back to the KSC. All right, so now that we are all set and dock to the Mir, how in the world do we get home? So first off, let's go ahead and set our target by spaceport and go Cape Canaveral. That's going to move our target right over there in Florida. The next thing we want to do is base sync. So what base sync will allow us to do is see exactly where we will pass by Cape Canaveral. We do have to manually type in the target though, Cape Canaveral. And we can see that at its closest passage, if we go cycle, we can see that 10 orbits from now is our closest approach, 192,000 kilometers away. So we've got about 55,000 seconds before that happens, quite a bit of time. So we can safely disconnect from Mir, get our ducks in a row, and get aligned well before we need to worry about deorbiting. Now the question I have now is 55,000 seconds away. Right now it's nighttime. Will it be daytime? Let me run a quick calculation. So 55,000 seconds on the dot is 15.2 hours away. So in 15 hours, it's actually going to work out well that it should be in the daytime by the time we get there, which is all awesome for us. So let's get ready to disconnect here. So we'll turn on our linear thruster so we can push backwards nice and easy away. Although the docking release does push us back a bit, but we want to help it along. And of course, we want to clear ourselves away from the Mir so that when we do our adjustments, we don't slam into the Mir and it burn up. That would be a terrible thing. All right, let's undock.
Undocking confirmed.
And we are away. We'll give it some reverse thrust. And we'll give it some downward thrust as well. And we'll just let it coast away nice and gently. Real respectable like. All right, so we do not need the docking door open now. We'll go ahead and close that up. And we will get off of docking mode. And in order to shut up those beeps, what I'll do is I'll just put in an arbitrary number, just bump one left and right, and no more beeps. Once we get ready to head towards Cape Canaveral, we will put in its frequencies in our nav radio stack. Awesome. So as we float away, the next thing that we are looking to do, let's bring up our orbit so we can see real time what our orbit is. We want to get to this node right here. So we're actually, an eighth, a pizza slice away from passing by the Kennedy Space Center. So yeah, we must be, where exactly are we on the map? Okay, so we're over, India. That's where we docked up. So a quarter of an orbit away, we'll be passing kind of close to Kennedy. And then we'll be using this line of nodes to rotate towards it and bring this down. So I will see you in about, what is that, 600 seconds and then another six, yeah. I'll see you whenever we get over here. All right, about 100 seconds away from the line of nodes that we can rotate. Let's hit the mod so we can see that is indeed minus. So let's go normal minus.
Rotation.
And we'll just use the main engines for sure. We want to line up and kill off this 192,000 kilometer separation. Or 192,000 meter separation, 192K. All right, 1 minute away. All right, about 10 seconds away. Let's go ahead and try now. And we can see that, yes, indeed, that distance is coming down. We want that to be 0, meaning that our orbit will pass directly overhead of Kennedy Space Center in 10 orbits time. Once we get close, we'll use our RCS thrusters to finish off the job.
Translation.
Just a little puff of forward RCS gets us down to 1 meter away from Kennedy in 10 orbits time.
Rotation.
Outstanding. Let's make sure that didn't kill our orbit in any way. Nope, 298 by 305. So that plane change did not put us in danger of re-entering at all. So now let's go ahead and get our radios set up for Kennedy. Let's go to the base here. Set for Cape Canaveral. Its transponder is 11270. So we'll just go over that way. And then over to 70 here. And for the runway, we want the long runway, 3315. It's 2,000 meters longer, and its ILS is 134.20, so all we need to do is go boop, boop, and now 134.20. What I do is, since it is a... Ooh, let me kill that rotation. Since we know it is a runway, and we can come at it from either side, it's runway 33 or 15, so that's 330 on the heading or 150 on the heading. I will go ahead and set my HSI, make sure that both are set to nav2, and I will point one at 330 degrees, and I will point the other, you guessed it, at 15 degrees. So either way, as we're coming, we'll be able to make a judgment if we want to turn to the left or the right in order to land. We'll see the distance equal on both, and then we'll just have to look at the arrows to see, you know, which way we want to head. So that is all set. Transponder is set. ILS is set. So then all we have to do is go VOR VTOL, make sure that is nav1, and when we get 500 kilometers away from Kennedy, this will come alive and we can see exactly where we are in relation. But it is a long way away. It's 10 orbits around until we get to the point where we should be at Kennedy. So once we start that last orbit, we will head over here, bring our orbit down right to the ground on the other side, and start our aero brake maneuver. All right, everyone, you can see that our machinery came online as we were getting close. It's right here. We're about to pass near it, but once we begin this orbit, we are coming down this time in 5,600 seconds or so, and down there somewhere is Kennedy. Let's see, is that Florida there? Crap. Let me see where we are on the map. All right, so we just flew overhead. Yeah. So next time, our orbit will be just 6 meters away from Kennedy. So we'll go to the back side of this orbit, go retrograde, and bring that orbit down into landing configuration. All right, we are now opposite of the Kennedy Space Center. We are flying over the west coast of Australia right now. And what I do is I go a little bit further because when I lower my periaps down, I want it to be a little bit past Kennedy so that we pass over Kennedy with a little bit of altitude. Let's go to our orbit here. Let's point retrograde, and let's use our big engines to bring that periaps right down. I'm thinking maybe 2,000 or 3,000, not sure. But we can definitely use the atmosphere to our advantage and adjust our altitude on the fly. This is just getting us down to where we can start to slow down a bit. All right, indeed, we are facing backwards. There is Western Australia out our right window. All right, let's go. So 5K. So we'll be at 5K right here. Cape Canaveral's right here, so we'll be a little bit higher than that. And we're 1.2K away now. So deorbiting did adjust our distance. I mean, 1.2K is certainly something we can do in the atmosphere. But if we're not so much in trouble when we get around to this line of nodes, we'll just tighten that up a little bit before we start getting into the atmosphere and start getting thrown around. So I'll see what our altitude is when we get over here and make that judgment. I'll switch to surface mode so we can see our real-time altitude when we get over there. And yeah, let's see if we can adjust our node here. All right, let's do it. All right, so 180K, we're going to start interfacing a little bit, so let's just do it now while we can. And so that's reverse thrust on the RCS. 300, 200, 100, 1 meter away. We don't need this anymore. All right, let's go prograde. And we'll start actually pointing the direction that we need to go. And let's put up our aero brake MFD with our target. Cape Canaveral. Let's hit the PG project. And now we can see what we're doing here. Kill that rotation. Let's get wings level. And next thing we'll do is close the retro doors. We don't need them anymore. All right, so wings level coming down. We'll start to see our orbit decay a little bit. And my approach for deorbiting in the Delta glider is to give just a little bit of nose down trim. Now, ideally, you would want to come in at 40 degrees. Let's say, point your nose way up. Let the bottom of the spacecraft take all of the brunt. But if you're not rolling with damage and you just want to come down if you're a beginner, you can do it this way. If you're in the, what is that, the MX2 or the RF2, the realistic spacecraft, you do not want to be coming down, nose down into the atmosphere, that is for sure. But if you're a learning orbiter or want to do it a relatively easy way, this is how I do. All right, so we will slowly get down into the atmosphere. It's just a matter of time, really. What I'll do is I will put up the VOR, VTOL, and we will wait for that signal from Kennedy Space Center.
Mach 37 plus. Mach 36. Mach 35. Mach 24.
All right, now that we're in the thicker stuff and we're not bouncing up and down like crazy, I'm adjusting the trim down in real time. You can see the green line coming back to the KSC. The more we put in, and then we will adjust our trim as we go. All right, so we can see right there, that is our prospective touchdown point. We'll just need a little bit more nose down trim, and it's a fine line. You can sort of see the line bouncing a bit, but as we travel forward, that line will slowly come closer, and we can see the distance to the target coming down. So I don't touch the trim until I realize that we're either going to really undershoot or really overshoot.
Mach 23. Mach 22.
Yeah, it's starting to get loud in here. We're over, say, Texas, Mexico, southern United States, northern Mexico, about to cross into the Gulf of Mexico. We should be passing just south of Louisiana, I believe, once I zoom in here. Yes, indeed. So we're just passing Matagorda, and we'll be going right south of New Orleans and coming in directly west to east to Kennedy Space Center. We can see that at projected, the distance is going down almost 19K away from the station, and it's continuing to go down, and that's what I like to see. Once the distance gets down to 500K, we'll swap over to that HSI and should get a nice reading on how far away we are and our distance. And we're about to pass over. Once that goes up the other side and that number starts increasing, we'll just give a touch, and I mean a little touch, of nose down trim, and you can see pulling 6.1 G, but fighter pilots pull 9. So hopefully the ship will behave itself. Normally you can't do this, though. I will stress that you cannot do this in the XR2. You will burn up like crazy, so don't even try it. Use the proper approach. And if we get into XR2 flights, then we will do this properly. But I like to just throw it in there. The Delta Glider can handle it.
Mach 21.
Alright, looks like we're going a little bit north, so let me rotate to the right just a bit and see if we can convince it there we go. Now we'll go wings level. Just a minor rotation, not much at all. Alright, looks like we're coming out the back side indeed. A little bit more nose down, just a click. Up to 7.4 Gs. This is packing it in, quick, fast, and in a hurry. Alright, down to 560K. Let's go ahead and select our VOR VTOL, and KSC should come alive here. And we'll go ahead and turn off rotation mode since we're in the atmosphere now and we want to use our control surfaces. There is KSC alive and overshooting just a bit. Put that nose down. 8.3 Gs coming down.
Mach 19.
And then once we get close enough to the KSC, let's rotate hard right here and see if we can get this bank in.
Mach 18.
Kind of looks like it went the other way, but there's the KSC there.
Mach 17.
Yeah, 14 Gs, we're really packing it in now.
Mach 16.
Yep, KSC will be right down here,
Mach 15.
holding at about 20K.
Mach 14.
We can see the VAB starting to render and load right there.
Mach 13.
All right, we don't need this anymore. We know where we're at.
Mach 12.
We'll get the HSI up.
Mach
Runway is
11.
right there, so we'll fly over it just a little bit, and once we go subsonic, we'll pull us a loop.
Mach 9. Mach 8. Mach 7. Mach 6. Mach 5.
HSI has come alive. Once we come around to the right, we'll be landing this way, so it looks like we'll be landing on runway 33.
5,000. 3.
All right, let's pitch up a bit
4,000.
and pull our trim.
3,000. 2. Subsonic.
All right, subsonic, there is the other runway off of our nose. We'll get into a nice high spin here. We can see the HSI. There is the runway line right there as we come down. We'll nose down just a bit, follow that
4,000.
HSI down, 8K away from the runway. Now we're level. Let's get aggressive.
3,000. 2,000.
All right, slipping a bit. Let's get landing gear down.
Gear down. You are cleared to land.
Thank you, thank you.
Gear down and locked. 1,000.
So we'll pick up some speed.
900, 800, 700, 600.
And then start leveling out.
500,
Speed will peel away.
400, 300.
Looks like a little bit of a crosswind, left to, or
200.
right to left.
100, 75, 50, 40, 30,
Easy does it.
20, 15,
We'll put in some right brake.
10, 7, 4, 2, wheels down,
Oh!
1,
Wheels up.
6, wheels down,
Wheels up.
20, 8,
Wheels down. Wheels
3,
up.
wheels down,
You know what they
Wheels
say.
up.
Any landing you can walk away from is a good one. I mean, that obviously wasn't the best. But we're center line. We made it. The Delta glider, even though there's God mode, we made it back to the Kennedy Space Center in a massive flare. You know, I'm not going to redo that or anything. All my mistakes are laid out for you. But next time we will try to do better. And next time I'm thinking that we head out to the moon and do ourselves a bit of VTOL, vertical takeoff and landing on the surface of the moon, and we won't have to worry about no crazy aero braking or anything of that nature. But yeah, just doing some Orbiter 2016 for fun. Like, share, and subscribe if you are so bold. Thank you so much for tuning in, and I will see you for the next Orbiter 2016 video. Take care.